morning. Um, Beautiful morning here today, or good evening if you have a beautiful evening wherever you are. So, today I would like to talk about fear. Um, the reason for that is because uh, one person at breakfast today was talking about her fear of what is going to happen if she loses her job. She is a single mother, and she was worrying about losing her job, and she was really tearful and very concerned. And her fear was justified, and I know it well. Single parents, in particular, we fear, what's going to happen. Um, Married couples, if the husband is the only one working, or even if both of them are working, but their lifestyle cannot be maintained if one of them loses a job, etc. But when we talk about fear, it really depends on what exactly we mean. We can have a definition of fear as perceiving something as a threat to our existence, to our lives, to our um, physical and emotional well-being. So the fear we can define all we want, but for different people, we experience fear in a different way. So what I fear, you may not. So, for example, when this lady was talking about the fear of losing a job, um, you know, she was already in her nearly 60s, so she could retire really in Europe very soon. And I asked her, so, okay, you lose a job, you will retire soon, you'll get some social assistance and just move the house, and go somewhere cheaper. And, because I moved a lot, and that's probably what I would do. If I can't afford to live in the middle of, I don't know, New York or London or something, which I like because I like towns. Okay, so what? I would go somewhere else where it's nice and sunny, and I can still live in a city, for example. So for me, it was a fear, but she, had some. She's close to her retirement. She would have a social assistance because in Europe you will get it, and so it just means a little change to your living conditions. So you don't need three-bedroom apartment. Maybe you want two-bedroom apartment. You're alone with your child. You don't need much. So because I had a lot of experiences in this area, moving country to country, place to place, for me it was not a big deal. However, for her it was. So, but just the fear of losing a job, that's not really a, a fear from that one particular thing. Fear of losing a job means uncertainty, means insecurity, means maybe fearing for your child not being able to have their friends around. Um, what happens then if we become emotionally um, unstable, in a sense, not that we go crazy, but emotionally unstable in the sense that we can't make our decisions clearly because our future is not clear. It's not, we don't know what future holds, and therefore we cannot make decisions. Um, so, in that sense, to conquer that particular fear, for example, best thing is to make some decisions very fast. Once you've made a decision, then you can move forward. This you can apply to many other things. For example, unhappy marriage. Whilst we're in that limbo state of an unhappy marriage, not knowing, shall we make up again, or shall we just divorce, or shall we just live as it is because of the children, or because it's easier, or because we are financially better off. Whilst we're in that limbo state until the decision is made, it's not a very nice place to be because um, we cannot plan our life. And whatever your plans for your life may be, they're better than just being in limbo. When you're young, that's fine because that is what youth is about, being young. not having that maybe long-term plan because you just don't know what's going to happen in your life, right? So, but once we are settled, in particular, if we are or have been married, have children, etc., when we get to a certain age, not being able to plan is a terrible thing. And unless we make some decisions and stick to them, we cannot plan. So, how about the of fear, of people who have anxiety and panics and internal fear that actually is not a threat? For example, being scared that you're going to be sick. You went to check up, you're not sick. But then every time when you sneeze, you think, oh my goodness, I'm going to be sick. And that sounds maybe ridiculous, but it's not, because a lot of people are scared of being sick because that means losing control. When we are not well, we lose control. How do we then make decisions, like in practical cases? How do we make decisions to make ourselves not fear if it is something that is within us? One way, of course, is to go and have a checkup and make sure that you have it in black and white, that you're fine. But of course, being human beings, we always think, maybe doctor forgot something, maybe they didn't look at something, maybe I didn't explain my problem enough. So there is always this nagging fear that somebody missed something. And at this day and age of internet, people go around looking at all sorts of anecdotal evidences and different experiences of different people, and then they retrospectively apply to themselves. And it's always easy to retrospectively apply something, very easy. A simple thing would be if you have sinusitis, for example, and you read somewhere, yes, this happened to me too, when I was all bloated, and you remember the times when you were really all bloated and feeling horrible with sinusitis. But then, you don't remember times when you didn't have it. I'm not talking about extreme cases. Of course, people who suffer sinusitis chronically, it is a horrible thing, and like anything else, any chronic disease. But I'm just talking about something that you don't really want anymore to go to the doctors because you've taken all the sprays there are, all the antihistamines there are, and you're still suffering some kind of sinusitis or rhinitis from time to time. It's just an example. It's a very simplistic one. So we look on the internet and we find something that is really, really uh, drastic. You need to check yourself because maybe you have clogging and it can go to your brain, and bacterial infections, and they can go to your brain or to your heart. And we look at all these things and then we apply it to us, and then we get more fearful, and this goes around and around. So what can we do? Not read anymore. Very difficult thing to say. So when we have fears that are not connected to some kind of practical change that we are in control of, like moving house, like divorce, like changing workplace, like adjusting our lifestyle to less than what we had before, um, buying clothes that fit us when we put on a little bit of weight rather than suffering. Um, so, what do we do? It's just not the same. So to say fear, to define fear in a sense that we perceive some threat, um, and we fear the consequences of something, it's not quite exact. I mean, we fear of, when we're children, we fear of our parents, especially in my time when you used to get slapped, or the ruler was hanging right there on the cupboard, and you know very well if you're not, you know, if you lied. In particular, in my case, my mother hated lying. And so lying and stealing were two things in my house that I knew are no-nos. And there was a ruler on the top of the cupboard that was hanging a little bit out. And I knew that this is coming. So, but that's how children were brought up a long time ago. So, it's not that my mom adores me, by the way. So, and I adore her. So it's nothing to do with anything or abuse or anything. That's how it was. But we knew that there are consequences to something, so we didn't kind of do it. We tried not to do it, and if we did it, we knew what the consequences were. Um, so, but in the case of losing a job, if we didn't cause it, or in the case of getting sick and we didn't do anything wrong, we just got sick, or in case of divorce, and we didn't cause anything to make that divorce, the consequences and being frightened of the consequences kind of don't apply. Um, we can philosophize about it, of course, but so fear is something that we acquire throughout our lives. Um, if people grow up in families who never worked, for example, there are generations of people in the United Kingdom, they were always on Social Security, they were always unemployed, and they're used to it. So, the kids have not seen anybody working in their families. So if you tell them, I'm going to lose a job tomorrow, they say, so what? Go and claim government help. But for some people who are in very, very, very strict working families, to lose a job is absolutely tragedy. It's a tragedy. So fear is something that we need to think about. What are we fearing about? What are we frightened about? Always, I. It's easy to talk about it, but of course, you know, I am guilty of behaving the same way, fearing things that I cannot control because I'm used to making decisions by myself and trying to make the best of whatever situation I was in. But um, fearing something, let's say if you discuss the fearing something, we need to write it down or think about it and say, okay, what if? What if this happens? You know, then what? I always go back to my 87-year-old mother now. Um, when she asks me how am I, and I tell her, oh, I'm moving house and I'm really tired and I'm working and my child has exams and I have a little bit of rhinitis and I can't breathe and and once she just sent me a message and said, oh well, that's nothing. I'm just counting my days, but I don't fear. And you think, you know what? People go to bed, old people, and they worry or they don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, and they know very well that when you get to 90, you know you are maybe thinking, how long will I live? But we fear of things that they would like to have, these kind of problems, the older people, they would like to lose a job, and they would like not to have, to have divorced and etc. Just not to count days. So I try always when I'm faced with fear, I try to think of other people who maybe don't have a control over something in their lives, and kind of it makes us feel better, you know. And I'm not saying think of somebody who is in the worst situation, because you know somebody who, for example, if somebody can't hear and they're born with this handicap, um, they they're used to it, and there's no point saying, oh, I'm so lucky because I can hear and they can't, because that is their life. They just have different kind of life. They have different relationships and different communication skills than we have, and so on. So when I say look at other people, I don't mean think how lucky you are. No, I just think I have a control over something and somebody else does not. So I can control where I live and what job I take. And I know people say, well, I can't control where I live because my family is here and I can't move. And I always ask, so why not? Pack your bags and move. Why not? Well, I can't leave, I don't know, my family behind, or I can't leave my job, but why not? If you're unhappy, why not? Well, they're going to be angry at me and they're going to say this and they're going to say, well, if people love you and have confidence in you and understand why you're doing what you're doing, there is no fear. It just depends whether doing something that makes somebody else unhappy is going to make you more unhappy than whatever situation you're in that makes you unhappy. So if our job makes us so unhappy, but leaving our job would make us more unhappy because a lot of people will suffer as a result of us leaving that job, objectively suffer, not just because we think they will suffer, then sure, we have to stay at our job because why would we swap one unhappiness for the other? But we have to be really reasonable and understand whether we are unhappy or do we fear the consequences of people maybe not loving us anymore because we do what is best for our happiness. So think about it. Why do we do things that we do? Is it because we fear the consequences? Or is it because we fear that if we don't have fear, we have no control over our lives? And somehow when we fear things, we recognize that fear and we can deal with it because we know what it is and it will pass. I don't know. A food for thought. I would say fear is a natural thing, but we have to take control of it. And if there are consequences of doing whatever we are doing, we have to understand them and deal with them. But most of the time, there may not be great consequences anyway. So be happy. Enjoy your lives. Life is really, really short. And just try not to fear. I try every day. So talk to people. People are wonderful. There's nothing better than sit outside or inside and do some people watching. That's great. All right. Have a wonderful day. It's Wednesday, May 9th, and have a wonderful Wednesday, May 9th. Bye for now.